My name is Margaret. I'm with the Invisible Histories Project. I was invited here by Dee and Tejas. And I'm going to be speaking using examples from some of my work at Invisible Histories and also from my work with Mississippi for Palestine, organizing for them. And also, I was talking to some folks about this, but my experience in the Tuscaloosa City school systems, I used to be a history and government and econ teacher for Tuscaloosa City schools. And so we'll be talking about like all those things, and a lot of the sources and examples that I use will be coming from those. So if y'all have any questions about that as we're going through, Invisible Histories, for those who don't know, is a nonprofit dedicated to preserving Southern LGBTQ+ history in the South. So Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. And that's where I work now. That's who pays my bills. And it's also a cause that's deep and near to my heart. This is not going to be a traditional like talk in front. I like to walk around. I'm going to be walking around. We're going to be doing some activities. So yeah, y'all might have to swivel a little bit, but I'm going to be walking and talking. That's just how I like to roll. I wanted to put a source for like indigenous lands that you live on. I come from Jackson, Mississippi, which is the traditional and ancestral land of the Choctaw people, the Choctaw Nation, and also the Natchez people and nation. But if you want to find that out for yourself, this is also a great teaching tool in the classroom, nativeland.ca. They are great, a great resource. And I want to shout out to Press On South. Yes.
Well, shout out to Karankawa, indigenous to this
region.
Yes,
thank you.
They're trying to restart their culture, so support them, donate to them, and the Apache who suffered genocide at the hands of Texas.
Thank you so much.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to ask if somebody knew like the different land acknowledgments for this place. Yeah, thank you. I really believe everybody in this space is a teacher and everyone is a learner. All of you who come into this space have knowledge and expertise to share and are going to have things that I'm talking about. You're going to know things about this that I don't even know yet. So what we're going to be talking about today, I love having an agenda, a roadmap, just so y'all know what's coming up. We're going to be talking about community archiving, which is just a fancy way of saying we're going to be talking about how do we save stuff, whether that's a protest sign, a lesson plan, an agenda, a family photo album. All of these types of things are part of our history that we're making right now. So we're going to talk about what is this type of archiving activity, what is saving our memories, what is memory work. We're going to do an activity to practice like a memory work activity. Why do we want to save this history? Like what does that get us? How does that help us organize? How does that help us resist whatever oppression is happening in our areas? Okay, so we're going to start off by just decoding and defining some terms. So everybody should have some paper, some copy paper, or some construction paper. If y'all will pass that around to your groups, either grab a sheet of paper, or if you have a notebook and you want to keep your notes in your own notebook, you can do that. It can be construction paper. Copy paper might be better. We're going to make a quick, KWL chart. So who has done a KWL chart before? Who hasn't? All right, okay, if you have, raise your hand if you're familiar with a KWL chart. Yeah, okay, that's great. I'm glad that we're gonna do some stuff that's new for folks. So if y'all want, take your paper and we're just gonna fold the paper in to make like a little door. And so that's gonna give you 2 lines on your paper. So if you fold your paper like this, yeah, perfect. And get those edges nice and crisp. So you should have a paper, yours probably looks a little better than mine, that has 3 sections. So if you want, you can do it this way or you can do it this way. But I want y'all to label those 3 sections. So the top one is labeled no. So this is we're gonna be talking about stuff you already know. And then the middle is gonna be want to know. And I like this being the biggest section because there's a lot of things I want to know always. And then learned is the last one. So know, want to know, and learned. So we're going to work on, right now, as y'all are labeling that, we're going to work on what are some of the things you might already know about archiving when I say the word archive, and we hopefully will kind of deconstruct what that means, or just explain what that means a little bit better. But I would love everybody to be working on the no section right now, so label your 3 sections, and I can walk around and help too. But in the no section, I want y'all to be writing down, what do you already know about archiving, about history, about preserving or saving stories and information? So what do you already know? I'm going to walk around and check on folks. We're going to take about 1 minute. So don't overthink it. Just kind of write down, what do you know? When you hear the word archive, what does it make you think of? And also it's very valid to be like, I have no idea what you mean by that, Marge. Like, please, like, you can put that on your paper. You can be like, nothing. So, looking good. Beautiful. Yeah, I can tell teachers over here. How's it going?
I can play music.
Oh yeah, thank you, Dee. Yes. Very cool, yes. So right now, it's about 1 minute, and everybody should be writing down something they already know about archives. Now look at the clock. Thank you, Dee, for playing music. Always such a better vibe. So take about 30 more seconds. If you're finished writing down what you already know, you can look up at me. Give me a little eye contact. Hey.
Árboles bajo el mar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead and finish the last thing that you're writing. And we're going to kind of share out if folks are comfortable. I would love to hear, what are some of the things you wrote down that you already know about an archive, or you already know about it? I see a hand back there. And if you want to say your name, like, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Reese. I'm a teacher, and I know that archives are a collection of artifacts which serve as primary sources in history, and they're important for maintaining accurate records of history, so the man can't erase our struggle.
Yes, okay, yes. Okay, I like that. Okay, primary sources, that was a great word. Primary sources, it comes from people. So it's like primary directly from the source. So yes, I love that. Does anybody else want to share? Yes.
They need to be organized, and that can be a challenge.
Ooh, organizing and labeling them can definitely be a challenge. So we have all these things. Sometimes it's just in a box, no labels, and then nobody knows what's in the box. So they have to be organized and labeled and accessible to people. What about over here? Yes.
I'm Nico, I'm a teacher. I wrote, it's important to document transgressions to protect yourself against oppression or to teach future generations so they may learn a lesson without living in the same situation.
I love that. I love that. Paper trail, paper trail, paper trail. Yeah, if you're in teaching, you feel that. But yeah, documenting what is happening to you, using that to say, this happened to me, this is real. You can't make me believe that this didn't happen or that it wasn't important. 100%. I'll take one more. One more? Yes, in the back.
So I'm Dorcas, I'm a librarian.
Yes, okay. Oh no.
I find that really interesting that everybody else used a lot of big words. What I wrote down was collect memories and mementos. And what I feel like is in the situation that we are in, we have a lot of people who have a lot of personal experience who may not be writing it down in a journal or maybe there's an online place where CVPE or other organizations just, you can put your story anonymously or not, but that's the beginning. The organization is important, the access later is important, key in fact. But if we don't collect the memories and the stuff as it's happening, those don't matter.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you could come teach this with me. Yes. Oh my gosh, so many good things. Like, I love everything that you said, and I want to echo Dorcas. Is that okay? What Dorcas said of memories, stories, and that every single one of you in this room has a story, has a memory, has a piece of history that somebody in the future is going to want to know. Somebody who is like you or somebody who is different from you is going to want to know, what did it feel like to be here in Houston, in this room, in this moment, after a hurricane, coming together, trying to organize, trying to learn together. And that story is important. And the reason why I do the work that I do is because I see a lot of folks who have never seen an image like them in a museum, have never seen themselves represented in a book, have never seen their memories, on display, or something that they relate to on display in a public library. And we have seen that there are active attacks on public libraries, on schools, to make sure that those voices and those stories are silenced. I view archiving, particularly community archiving, particularly memory work, as a way that every single individual can have like a way to document their own story. So taking those tools that we talked about that are used in libraries and saying, this actually doesn't, there are a lot of professional degrees that help you with that, but there's a lot of things about libraries, archiving, community history that an individual person can do, and it actually doesn't have to be as hard. It doesn't have to be as official as like a box in like a state archive. It can be, your grandmother's house is a community archive. Like we've all have somebody in our family who is the family documentarian. And so we're gonna be talking a little bit about that today, and we're gonna be talking about it in the context of organizing and actions. Yes, I see a hand back there.
Well, I was just going to add that it would include screenshots of Facebook posts, and emails that you're getting or sending that you think are important going forward. And maybe they turn out that they get deleted because there's 49 copies of it. But having that available is important.
Yes, and we actually have a slide on digital materials because a lot of our organizing right now happens on social media. So I'm going to keep us rolling, but I want y'all to just kind of be thinking about, y'all already know a lot about this. And before I move on for this slide, the reason I am going to use memory work in this presentation as opposed to archiving, as opposed to library sciences, is because memory worker, I think, is something for folks who archiving and library sciences has a lot of like context around it, and a lot of people like professionalism, but I like the term memory work because I think anyone can be a memory worker. I also believe anyone can be an archivist, but some people will argue with me about that, but I just relate a lot to memory worker. That's also how me and Dee met, is at a coalition of Southern memory workers, so people who are collecting the memories of things that matter to them, their communities, their people. And so, and everybody in this room is already a memory worker, so, and we're gonna be creating some memories today. So we're gonna keep going, and one of the things throughout this presentation is gonna be how can we use memory work as part of what we're doing. So we talked about this a little bit, so archives versus memory working. So to me, sometimes like if you were to go to your state archive today, it might look like this: boxes, things in it. They're very nicely organized, very nicely labeled, but are people touching them? Are they engaging with them? Are they accessible to people? Do the people who are in these boxes, like the memories that are in these boxes, do they even know that their stuff is in there? And libraries, archives, and museums, particularly in the US context, have a history of extraction, exploitation, and taking of things and memories without, connecting to the communities that they're from and putting them behind these doors where they're not accessible to folks. To me, memory work and community archiving, if we preserve stuff and nobody ever sees it, what is it doing? If you put history in the hands of people, people relate to it. People are going to want to feel it, to be like, it's important to me that somebody from Jackson felt this way, or it's important to me that somebody from Houston felt this way, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, back in the 1800s, and to see that is very important. So, actually physically like putting history in the hands of the people can touch it, and that I think is so important. And a lot of our public libraries do a very good job of that. So today, I'm also going to be giving you guys some activities that hopefully you can use in your organizing, in your family. Can I have some volunteers to, I'm going to give, and it's just the top 3. Everybody gets the top 3. Thank you. These are some activities that I developed to help organizers, educators, and just regular people document the history that's going on in their communities like right now. Because I found that when I'm going through something like a crisis or a protest is happening, things feel very intense. It can be very hard to know what to document or like how to even like slow down enough, because you're just trying to make sure people are fed, you're trying to make sure people are safe. And so a lot of times during a crisis, it can be very hard to think about, what does it mean to kind of take a step back and think about how would this moment be remembered? And so I developed these activities in partnership with activists and organizers, particularly around LGBT organizing in the South, people who are trying to organize against the bathroom bans and just like a lot of dehumanizing bills that are coming through, but also the Mississippi for Palestine movement. And we really found that we needed a way to safely document what was happening to us now and give people a way to either express through art, express through letter writing, or express through oral histories, which is just interviewing someone. So today we're going to look at the zine making activity. And I'm going to invite you all, so that's the first one, and we're going to be using this throughout the presentation. So you're going to walk away from this presentation with a lot of stuff. But for this zine activity, this is basically a collective zine activity. In this square is the ratio exactly of a half-size sheet of paper. And what I'm going to invite you all to do, I know the tables are already getting a little chaotic, is to decorate your paper as we're kind of going through this conversation. And I'm going to give you all a prompt. But basically, you just color in this line, and we'll just start there, and we'll talk about if you want to put your name on it, you can, but if you would like to remain anonymous, you don't have to put your name. And if you would like to receive like a copy of it, this is just what we would do for organizers. I would probably give all of these to Dee after to save as part of Teha's archives. But basically, this is like an example, and we're going to kind of model throughout this session what it would look like to do this activity with your own like families, with your own classrooms, with your own teacher groups and stuff like that. And so what I want you guys to do today, while you're thinking about that, and you can use the colored pencils, everything that's on your table, is what's a story about your school? And I'm going to say your school broadly. It could be your school district, it could be your specific classroom, it could be the school that your grandchildren go to, What is a story about your school that only you can tell, that only you know? And I want you to think about maybe what's an object or a place or a person. So it could be thinking about like, this is our special table at the cafeteria, or this is like the teacher who made me feel at home in a classroom or safe in a classroom or taught me something new. Or this is what I think about when my kids go to school every day. This is what I worry about. This is what I hope for them. So everything, I want you guys to be thinking about what is the story that only you can tell about your school. And I want you to decorate within that square, but you can definitely break outside of it. Zines are all about not following rules, so you can think about that. But I want you to decorate within that square going along with that prompt. So I'm going to pause right there. Any questions about that? Y'all have colored pencils, you have paper, you have glue sticks and scissors. These are all for you to use. So I would like y'all to just use these as much as you want. The only thing I will say, the things that are coming out of the pencil boxes, try to keep everything that comes from the pencil box, make sure it goes back in the pencil box, because those are from CVP. But it's okay if some of my stuff gets in there. But yeah, so I want you guys to do that. And this is going to be this is an active learning session. So y'all can be like working on your zine page, and we're going to keep talking about, and as we're working on the zine pages, and as y'all are doing this activity, I'm going to be showing y'all some examples of basically archivable materials that I've photographed and collected and preserved from different protest movements in Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. So you're going to be creating an artifact while we're learning about artifacts and learning about how to preserve artifacts. Yes, so everybody, you can keep working on this throughout the presentation. If that's like too much for you to be doing, like while also listening, that's okay too. So this is an activity that you could use to archive a protest. So if y'all are protesting something that's going on in your school. So I have like some quick things that I tell people and organizers to keep in mind. And we want to have a plan before there's a crisis, before there's an action. Because if we wait till an action is happening, till a crisis is happening, it can be very hard to get organized and to, you know, to do these things, because this is not a natural part of everybody's process sometimes. So before the protest, you'll be thinking with your fellow protesters, your fellow organizers, your fellow teachers about, you know, discussing group consent to be archived, to take photographs. We already modeled that in talking about the video that we're taking. Community agreements, exactly like what we did today, like how are we going to archive things, like how do we feel good about that, and community safety. So if you're doing an action where it's maybe not safe for your face to be shown, you know, talking about those things with folks. And that will inform the kind of materials that you can preserve and inform the type of materials you may want to preserve. But I'm going to be giving y'all general information about how to preserve the most stuff, but I'm just putting a little note right here that anything that I say in this, you can modify to best suit and best be appropriate to your different situations. What we're going to do next is we're going to brainstorm types of materials you might want to preserve. So community art, what you guys are creating right now, that's a type of material that you would want to preserve. And we're going to talk for each of those materials like a best way to do that. And then we're going to talk about maybe packing supplies. If you decide like, I love this, I love community archiving, I love creating history, and you want to become the memory worker of your different groups, your different community groups, what are the types of things you might need to kind of keep that going and to be community archiving as you're going through all your actions. So we're going to talk about some examples of stuff to save from protest. So the reason why we do this is because it does not take a long time for community history to be lost. You can see just with one storm, community history, family history is lost. For some of these things that we've archived, so these have varying ranges of years. So this is a news article that came from protest of Cracker Barrel in the 90s. So Cracker Barrel was firing employees, and they were writing on their firing letters that they were firing them because they were gay. And there was protests that happened because of this. So this is in 1992, I believe. But we couldn't, 92. And that's, so there's these boycotts that form in the 90s that are led by, it's a couple different groups, but Queer Nation, National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, which is mobilizing lawyers to help with this, but mostly just different community members that protest these local restaurants to say this is an unfair hiring and firing practice. Like this is not, but there was not legal protections for folks, not legal protections for folks who are getting fired for this. And so that's what they're trying to protest Cracker Barrel to change their policies, and then they're trying to protest the government and legislators to create protections for fair hiring practices to protect people based on who they are and who they love. But this newspaper article, if somebody didn't clip this out and save it, we would have to go back into the archives and try to find it. The same thing for this protest sign. So this is actually from 2023. Yes, in November at Washington. And this is a protest sign at DC March for solidarity with the Palestinian people. And so this is a sign that if nobody decided to save this, would have gotten thrown in the trash. But we need to remember, how are people creating art? And this sign is beautiful. Somebody created a stencil, somebody spray painted it, and it shows us protest signs are a great thing to preserve and archive, something all of you can archive. They show what your message is, what your values are, what you care about. And so they're a thing that you can archive. And then community newsletters. So this is a newsletter that comes from North Carolina. From the 80s and 90s, and it's an LGBT newsletter of that community there, and it's just them documenting their community events. So there's things like AA support groups, there's things like there are things like just community support groups and food drives that they're organizing, and these are things that I've documented for Invisible History, so the project that I work on. But these newsletters, we had to actually talk to a community elder to find them, because these had never been in a public library, obviously, because it wasn't safe for people to be publicizing that back in the 80s and 90s. And so what we had to do is literally talk to people one-on-one to try to find this history, but it's a whole a document that gives you step by step how these people are organizing, and we can learn a lot from them today. I saw a hand right here.
I was going to ask about the ink.
Yeah, the ink.
Because I find the things that are published recently, the ink disappears on you.
Yeah.
So how, you know.
So it depends on what you're trying to print and what you're trying to do. There are some materials that degrade a lot faster. In terms of like specifics for ink that you can look for, the best things that you can advise for how to preserve paper is to keep them in a dry place, to keep them free of any like risk of mold, to have a folder that they're in so they're not, if you have something that maybe the ink is bleeding on it or the paint that people are using was like bleeding, to have it kind of in its own section. And then I can talk to you more specifically about specific ink recommendations, like if you're like, but you know, we have to organize and like produce materials with the printers that we got. We can't go buy a fancy printer. So thinking about, you could take it to a public library and make a copy of it, could be a strategy, but you know, if you put something in a folder, and for most of these things, so for a protest sign, putting that in, I tape 2 poster boards together and I put that in a folder, and that's where we keep it in our community archive. For these, just a plain manila folder, you can get those at the Dollar General, you know, for like, and if you put those in there, that will like exponentially increase like its longevity until you can get it maybe into a public archive or into a public library. So that's my general advice for folks with materials like that. Yes, I see a hand.
Well, I was also going to say you could digitize some of it, which is not the same as the actual item, but it is a record that you can keep up with. And Google Drive is a really good way for you to do that. The other thing I was going to say, you mentioned about that newspaper article, that somebody would have to go find it. The assumption there is that you know it
still exists. Yes.
Well, not that it still exists.
But that you even know about it.
You even know to go looking for
exactly.
it. So all these newspaper articles that some of us are not reading all of them because there are 900 million, save a link.
Yes.
Because those links are going to be stable for quite some time, and then you can download a PDF.
Yeah.
Not all of them, you're right, but at least, you know, or download a PDF. Sometimes I have to make a PDF because it won't download for me. But then I have them to look at when I want to do something with it for whatever work I'm doing with this group or another.
100%.
But
yes, and printing things out. And Dee, sorry, did you want to hop in?
No, just on a note on that, and that's what we're finding right now with hurricane, with a lot of extreme weather and things that we are documenting on the environmental justice front, and also with the schools. Saving the links are great, but we know sometimes those go away.
And people can change what's on the link.
They can change what's on there, and then you have security breaches with Google Drive. So, you know, if you have it on your computers or devices, think of how long do you want it to live there, and at what point do you want to move that information onto an external hard drive
or print it out.
And I would say
and
print it out.
Yeah.
So that way you have a digital version, a digital archive, and you have your own archive, a physical archive.
Yes, yes, yes to all of this stuff. So these are some other examples of objects, textiles, and ephemera. I also have some examples I was going to show and walk around. So archives are not just paper materials. It's not just, you know, your meeting minutes or your emails or anything like that. It can be materials like a banner that you painted with your friends, or a t-shirt. This is from Atlanta Pride in the 90s. So like a t-shirt, or we already talked about newspaper, but this is a newspaper from Alabama. It's Alabama's first gay and lesbian press, and it's just really cool. But again, like these things, if you don't know they exist, you can't save them, and nobody knows better how to tell the community history of your space than you right now in this moment. So you know, these t-shirts that y'all are wearing, that's history in real time. So make sure y'all save a t-shirt and like put it in a box. It doesn't have to be so serious, you know. You put it in a box, put that box in your closet, and just keep putting things in there. And we can worry about the organizing and the sorting later. Like it really can be, because sometimes people make it too complicated and then people don't want to save things and things get thrown away. It really can be as simple as you have a box in your closet. I would recommend put it on a shelf. Y'all are aware of water stuff here. Put it on a shelf so water doesn't get into it. And I recommend cardboard boxes over plastic boxes for places that are impacted by weather and climate change. And the reason I say that that if you aren't sure that your plastic storage container is 100% waterproof, like if there's a leak, if something gets in the lid, if it's in a plastic container, that container is going to hold that water in there and all your stuff is going to be sitting in water. But if you put it in a cardboard storage box, there are ones that are specifically for like leaching water out, but just a regular old banker's box that you can get at Office Depot, you can also get at the Dollar General, like that, the water will evaporate out. And that's just like, that is more helpful depending on how long it is. But if you have it off the shelf and then you kind of have it in a room that you know typically doesn't leak or you know is typically good, you know, fingers crossed, you know, there's always like extreme circumstances, but also if you know where that box is and you know that you've been putting stuff in there, it's easy to grab and take with you very quickly. So there's that. But some of these examples, these are such cool examples. This one is from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. It's a hand-painted banner. This one is a photograph by Dust Chambers with the Stop Cop City movement, and it's a riot police officer. I don't know specifically which kind, but he confiscated a paper mache sign that folks had did, and it's just interesting, like a police holding that sign. This is a rainbow Palestinian flag. These are some buttons. If y'all are creating buttons, that's a type of object or ephemera. This is some graffiti, taking photos of graffiti that's going on in your areas. These are very cool. These are signs, and they are also shields. So these are shields that the forest defenders were using outside of another project related to Stop Cop City. And they're simultaneously beautiful works of art, but they are also shields that they were using to prevent being hit with rubber bullets. And then also t-shirts. So it could be a printed t-shirt or a hand-painted t-shirt. And I love looking at these and having this history, having this stuff that we've documented, not only because it's important in it, each of these objects has a story behind it and tells a piece of community story, community resistance, but it also inspires me. And I'm sure if you all have been online, if you've been looking at stuff, you've seen a lot about how history is informing how we act and what is capable of our protest movements today, what is capable of our resistance movements today, by learning from the past. And so not only is it our duty to look to the past and try to document these things that have been lost or like are in the back of somebody's closet or grandmother's, you know, under the bed or something like that, to go and search for this history, because this history exists in the South. It really does, whether it's been documented or not. So it's important for us to look to the past and learn from it, let that inform our actions and how we organize today, and then to remind ourselves to document our history, because there is going to be a passing of the torch always, you know, to the next generation. We want to leave things behind for them to look at and learn from, and to prove that we existed here, always have existed here. Yeah, is there a hand? Sorry. Yeah. We have a couple more. And I know 2 minutes. So we're getting close to the end. Some other examples of things to save that aren't just paper and now aren't just t-shirts and stuff like that. Videoing like songs, writing down the songs that in the chants that you use at your actions and your marches. And also every one of these primary sources can be used in a classroom. So these are VHS tapes for the young folks in the crowd. But you know, it's like the same thing as taking a video with your iPhone, but actually in some ways these last a little longer, because if you don't get stuff off of your iPhone, think about if you've had a device that you've transferred from and then you lose all your pictures, you lose all your videos. So making sure that every so often you take those videos off your phone and put it onto a hard drive, or maybe even put it on a disc, and stuff like that. And then flags in the background, chants, marches. These are from the Mississippi Coalition to End Corporal Punishment, which is a group that's pretty similar to this coalition that y'all have, that's fighting the increase of police forces in schools in Mississippi. And so these are some of their chants. You can't read them right there, but there's some really good ones. And they were teaching us freedom songs from the Mississippi Freedom Summer, which is the 60th anniversary of this year. But they were incorporating that into their current actions. So thinking about not just like what are printed materials, but you know, what are the songs, what are the poems, what are the speeches, chants, and dances and performances that we can record and document that y'all are using. And so there is a note here about digital materials. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I took it off because I didn't want it to get, but download your Instagram posts, screenshot your Instagram comments, that people are posting on y'all's stuff, and save the social media that you're doing. Save it to your computer. If you have a cloud drive that you're using as like an organization, download those files every so often, and I encourage folks to print them out. Print them out is very helpful. So I have some tips so you know what types of things you want to do. When we're at a protest, how do you prep for that? Say you want to be a memory worker. You want to document the actions that you're going. Prep before the action and, bring posters, bring folders, bring sticky notes to label stuff, bring a camera, bring your phone. If you have one of these, you can document your action. If you have a phone, this is your best archiving tool. It can't stay on the phone, but you can use it in real time to document what's going on around you. You can use your voice memos to do a little quick interview on the street type of thing. So that's I will share these slides out. I'm gonna keep us moving. Also, a pro tip, one is like doing a sign that asks people to donate their protest signs. This is an example of one in DC. And then also getting folks to sign a banner. This is such a beautiful way to archive and document an event, to preserve an event. It creates this banner from 90s Pride in Birmingham, Alabama. Now is a record of the people who participated and helped organize that march. And I love that it says look to the future. It's two heads leaning together. I just think it's beautiful. So after the protest, sort and label materials. This can be as simple as putting things into a box. Saving copies of press or media coverage. So yeah, save the links, but don't rely on those links to remain stable. They will for some organizations, but also for smaller news organizations, maybe not. 10 years, a lot of the internet can disappear. I recommend that people download PDF copies of them and then also print them out. Upload your photos and videos to one place. And then most importantly is a group debrief. And what I mean by that is getting your group together. Y'all seem very organized, but in some of the actions I've been at, it has been very much like you come to this action, you do it, you leave, and then it's like, whoa, what just happened? Where do we process? How do we do that? And part of community care is listening to each other and documenting each other's stories, because there's nobody who will know the experience of what you're going through more than the people you're currently fighting with. And to help document each other's stories is so important. So using these activities that I generated, these are things that you could use in a group debrief. Make about 10, 20 copies of this, bring it with you, and you can do this as an activity to help people organize. All right, I think I'm pretty close. I want to have some time. Okay, yeah, we're done. Okay, so we're gonna take a pause because that was a lot of me talking, and I normally don't like talking that much. 5 minutes. So I would love, if we could use this last 5 minutes, I would love if y'all could show me if you've been working on a zine page, kind of hold up the zine pages that you've been working on, maybe go around the room, and I would just love to hear from folks how are you feeling? Do you think this matters? Is this something you might be using? Is this something you want to do? I'm just curious if there are folks who want to share and just, touch base, why does this matter? Yes.
I'll share. Okay, so this is my picture here. I have a nonverbal autistic granddaughter. Mm-hmm. She is everywhere. Mm-hmm. Mike Miles took her favorite teacher away. Mm-hmm. So this says, I matter too. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Miss Lambert. Love and accepted. My shero is Miss Lambert Soraya, and it reads, to know and feel that it is there. Now I bend over backwards, go over and under, laying myself bare in this longing. Love and accepted. Love, Soraya.
Beautiful. Yeah. Anybody else want to share? Yeah.
It's very simple. It just says one small act of kindness can change a life. And when I went back to teaching, I inherited a class that had 15 substitutes, and there was trash everywhere, and I was so overwhelmed. And a veteran teacher brought me a trash can.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I still have my first pencil sharpener when I was the first ed teacher, and I couldn't figure out how, and it was just a mess. And one of the administrators just bought me a huge, really expensive pencil sharpener, and every day I look at it and I'm like, man, it makes me happy. Somebody looked out for me.
I love that. Anybody else want to hold up theirs and share a little bit about what you created? Yeah.
Mine says, teaching is humanizing. And it's a picture of me and two of my students. I'm gonna cry. One of them told me something really difficult. And she said, I've never told anyone this before. And the other one was a little boy who was finally connected, like middle of the year, finally was connecting to the curriculum because I had brought in something a little different. And he could relate to it, and it was in his language and English. And he was like, oh, this reminds me of my, like the countryside where he's from. And he could tell me about it, and I was like, the kids really need to have more say in what we're doing and what we're learning. And teaching is not this robotic process that Mike Miles is trying to make teachers turn it into. And thank goodness for the ones who are resisting that. And so sorry for the ones who are stuck in it. And for our children who are stuck in it.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. We'll take one or two more. Do you want to share?
So I don't draw. And I'm a librarian. It says essential to strong education. Library books, valid information, librarian who helps, teaches, and collaborates. The middle says inequity. Mostly in schools, a majority Black, brown, immigrant, and Freeland, the word communities didn't fit. Now missing in HISD, library books, valid information, librarians to help teach and collaborate.
Beautiful. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll do this last one, and then I'll wrap us up.
So mine's kind of about well, not kind of, it's about me. And like all the fights that I fight. So it says my name, Reese Carr, and then under it says teacher, activist, trans. I've got the Palestinian poppy, and a rainbow, and a little books, and it says, I've fought my whole life just to exist. Of course I'll fight for you. Queer rights, reproductive rights, student rights, protect trans youth. And then it says, my community upholds me when I'm fallen and seeks me when I am needed. And under that I've put the symbols for like male, female, and then trans, and I said we deserve to live too. And I'm also autistic, so under it, in a little corner it says autism awareness, but awareness is crossed out and it says acceptance underneath it.
Awesome. Yeah, round of applause for all of you, whether you were able to share your zine or not. And I'm just gonna, I know we're right at time, so I could go on and on about like why this matters, but I feel like y'all just demonstrated like why this matters like more than anything I could say. And it really is like when you hold space for people's stories, like each one of you guys preserved your story, people that matter to you story, like we all are connected. And when we practice using our own voice, it helps other people like use their voices as well. It helps us know each other, trust each other, show up to actions differently. And it helps us take back our narrative power of like, we can tell our stories. We're not gonna wait for our superintendent to tell our stories or people who are trying to, hurt us to tell these stories. It's only we can do this, and we can do it with people that we care about. And it really, I believe it is such an important part of organizing, not just for today, not just fighting the battles that are right in front of us, but fighting the battles that are in the future. And we're speaking to the future when we write. Now you made an object, a piece of paper that can be archived and be a part of your community's histories for decades, years, like centuries to come. People will know like how you were feeling in this moment, who mattered to you, what you loved. And that's the type of community history I care about. And I really don't care about anything that's not that, honestly. I'm like, this is the most important thing to me. And so, yeah, just thank y'all so much. And yeah, now you all know what it means to be a memory worker. You're all memory workers. And I hope that you do these types of activities and generate your own and do it better in your own actions and organizing and communities and classrooms and everything like that. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.